You know, these little phones are amazing. I'm not smart enough to work my smartphone, but you know, I haven't listened to my radio at all since it got stolen. I haven't put it back in there because you can just download Bible 24/7. You know, I've got court during the day, but in the evenings I traverse all over North Texas, and so it's just I just lock in, and there I am. There I am. You know, you can do a couple of books just in one evening, just driving around. So, no, I'm glad my radio got stolen. I'm going to have to send that thief a thank you note because he's improved my life. He's improved my life. Okay, well, what we'll do today, a couple of things. I had a request to kind of finish out where we left off 2 weeks ago in the comparative narrative.
Tim, before you start, I'm sorry, I didn't know you were going to jump right in. Did you watch the Israel miracle thing last night?
I did not, but I've been told about it. Tell us about it.
Well, I don't know. I just watched 10 minutes of it. But they're going to repeat it.
Solomon was on it.
I think they're repeating several times.
ABC.
It's on ABC. It's on 1 hour. It's called Miracle of Israel.
Yeah, you can go online and get it too.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, no, I watched TV. So,
Yeah.
what time?
I don't know, but it may be in the newspaper today.
Okay.
But it was just the first 10 minutes was wonderful. So I just didn't know if Jim had watched it yet. I was wanting his take on it.
No, I didn't, but people have told me about it. And I can tell you this, it's Gershon Solomon, so it's going to be great. So wherever it is, find it, chase it down, have a watch party. As you know, Gershon was kind enough to host us about 3 or 4 years ago. And Gershon is the head of the Temple Mount Faithful. It's his responsibility to put the temple back together. And he believes he's going to be able to build that thing in his lifetime. They've got the cornerstone. Everything's ready to go. Everything's ready to go. The only thing that's lacking really is to move the mosque. And he says that's going to happen soon enough. And Gershon's, you know, he's so cute about it. He's got great stories. He's got all these stories. Stories. You know, his son was part of the Ethiopian rescue. His son worked for the Israeli Defense Ministry, and so they went down there and they were picking up the Ethiopians. They had to sneak them out at night because there were Ethiopian Jews down there. And you know how that happened, Queen Solomon. And so they get and they're rounding them up and they're sending them to the plane. And so Gershon's son goes out there and the Ethiopians are sitting on the wing of the plane. They're sitting on the wing. He says, "What are you doing up there?" He said, "Well, hey, you know, the Bible says that we're going to return on wings of eagles." Get inside the plane. So they stuffed him in the plane. But he had just hundreds of stories like that.
Jim, you know what was heartbreaking to me just in the first few minutes that I watched it was they were talking about all the prophecies about Israel getting, you know, their own land and going back to the homeland. And I'm thinking, biggest prophecy of all, you didn't get. I mean, that just broke my heart.
Yeah.
They brought it to closure kind of.
Did they?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
They did a good job.
Okay, good.
Yes.
I've got a TV app on my phone.
There you go.
So it is Saturday, April 13th.
It's not tomorrow or tonight, right?
I've got it on the.
Yeah, I'm looking at it too. It's the 13th at 11:35
Right.
and the 14th at 3.
Right, it is Channel 8.
Why would Channel 8 have something pro-Israel? Get your advertising papers on.
Somebody paid the big bucks.
Fair and balanced.
Fair and
Fair and
balanced.
balanced, yeah.
But Gershon is so cute, because when I heard he was coming, I asked him if he'd come here. And he said, "Well, I don't know. And so there was another church in Austin that actually wanted him, and so we split the difference and we went to Waco. I said, "Okay, well, we'll meet down in Waco," and it was just a pleasure to meet the man. I mean, he is the point man. He is the Nehemiah of our time. He is Nehemiah in the flesh. And he has great stories of how God saved him from the war. He was run over by a tank. And he says, because the UN observers told him, after he was run over by the tank there in the Golan Heights, some Syrians had come down and they were about to finish him off because they'd been run over by the tank. And angels appeared and fended off the Syrians. And the UN observers put that in their report, that these men mysteriously appeared and scared off the Syrians. And so Gershon said that was when God told him, "I'm putting you in charge of getting the temple rebuilt." Okay, so I'll do it. But it's just funny. It's just so interesting. And about the mosque, I've asked him, how are you going to solve the problem at that mosque? And he said, oh, God will do it. He's going to take the mosque.
Or maybe the Koreans will.
And put it in an envelope and mail it to Mecca where it belongs. Okay. But he's just really, really cute. Remember to send him. So I email him stuff, and I tell him, I send him little scriptures and prophecies because I want them to get it right this time. I said, Gershon, Gershon, he's gonna have books in his hands. He's gonna hold it. Well, I'll see when he gets here. No, you got to see it right now. And so, but it's otherworldly because I email him and I think, you have to scratch it. I just emailed the Sanhedrin. Yeah. How can that be? What a fun time to be alive. This was an amazing time to be alive. And it's fun doing life with Gershon. He's the real deal, and we're seeing all these prophecies come true. So do watch this. You're going to like this guy. He's crazy. All right. Let's see. Passover. Oh, Passover is really special. We spent Passover with some of our Jewish friends. Just brilliant family, and had a wonderful evening. And the Haggadah was so beautiful. It was an updated Haggadah. So instead of during Dayenu, instead of telling about being rescued from the Egyptians and rescued from slavery, you know how Dayenu goes. If he had just rescued us from slavery, but not given us the land, that would have been enough. If he just saved us from Pharaoh's army in the Red Sea, but not delivered us and given us manna, that would have been enough. Had he given us manna and not given us the Word of God, that would have been enough. Had he given us manna and not given us the land, that would have been, it just builds and builds and builds and builds. And it was updated. It was updated. Had he given us the land of Israel and not given us this, that would have been enough. Had he given us victory in 73 and not given us victory later, that would have been, it was just, it made me cry. Y'all are getting it. You're getting it. We're here. It's happening. See, when you see those prophecies being true, you see all those prophecies being true, fulfilled. Wait a minute, now, what about these other prophecies here? Have we missed some? You understand?
What were the prophecies they didn't have in their book that you were talking about?
Well, so we were having our discussion, so of course we're kind of moving through the prophets, and then we get to Ezekiel. And their Bible didn't have Ezekiel in it.
Really?
Well, they had the three.
Well, the Torah.
They had that, but they didn't, in their home, didn't have.
And in this home, as a library, this man speaks 5 languages. And the books, everywhere, books. And he's read them all. He's read them all. Huh? Didn't have Ezekiel. Okay, all right, well, we'll pick that up in May. We'll try again. Okay. So, lots of fun. Watch the show. So let's lay some predicate. Because in what we did a couple of weeks ago, in a study session, we can do so much more than you can in the sanctuary. Because when you're dealing with the folks that come 1 or 2 or 3 times a year, there's so much in here that they're not going to get. And so you're trying to reach that audience. And so the gospel is presented clearly and simply and powerfully. But there's some really fun stuff. Some really fun stuff that you miss out on by not being able to study the section. So we'll do that today, and we'll do a little comparative analysis between the 2 books. So where we left off last time, we had the crucifixion, and we talked about how in the garden, when man was naked, Adam and Eve were naked, and they went and built some clothes, put some clothes on, started the garment industry, but they were still hiding from God. God came, and they were still hiding. They were hiding amongst the trees. And then we saw how, throughout time, being naked was a sign of shame, and people were scared to do that. And then here at the cross, what are they doing? As they're taking off the clothes of Jesus, they're stripping him naked before God. Naked before God. And then Jesus' first words from the cross were what? Father, forgive them, for they know what they do. So he's saying to forgive them, and what happens here to the thief? One of the thieves, they're both cursing him. They're both blaspheming him. But he says, forgive them. Forgive who? Forgive the people that are killing him. Forgive the murderers. Forgive the priests and the people and the soldiers. And so the thief, he comes to the conversion. He comes to conversion on the cross. He understands. He's in the presence of the living God. He understands that he's a sinner. And he tells the other thief, don't you even fear God. we're getting what we deserve, but this man has done nothing wrong. Not only did he say he's not guilty of this offense, he's done nothing wrong. An acknowledgement from the thief, this man is without sin. And to be the Passover sacrifice, the lamb had to be what? Perfect. Without blemish. The thief acknowledges, this is a perfect man. The soldiers say, this man was righteous. He's righteous. You have acknowledgement for the thief. The people, afterwards, when they leave, they're leaving the scene, they're beating their breast. Just crucified an innocent man. Huh? And then we saw later on in the Acts, hundreds of priests come to faith. Hundreds of them. So he says, Father, forgive them. Father, forgive them! And all the people that were responsible for his death and for blaspheming him, what? There's a way to be forgiven. He makes a way for all of them. And the church is really founded right there at the cross with the blood and the water being poured out in the sacrifice. The blood and the water. That's where the church is founded, by these people. And that's where at Pentecost, Peter is telling them, you're the one who crucified Jesus. He made a way for you. You crucified him. And 3,000 were saved on that day. So, let's continue on with the story. And we have the crucifixion is in all four Gospels. But I thought this morning what we'd do, let's take it from the perspective of women. Men, if you've noticed, sometimes your wife may have a different perspective. On occasion. That may be possible. And there's a reason why in the Gospels, the reason we have four Gospels that tell the same story, they're all from different perspectives. And that's the beauty of the harmony of the Gospels. It's like if we were all painting this lectern, every one of us, if you painted it or took a picture, it would be correct. But it's from a different angle. And so you're going to get a little different composite view of what you think the lectern looks like. But it's in the combination of all that views that you get the full gospel, you get the totality of the experience. So we're going to do this morning, we're going to look just a little bit at, we're going to look a lot, at the view from women, but let's lay some predicate. First of all, let's go to Exodus 34. Exodus 34 and lay a little bit of predicate for this feast. And we've talked about the feast, and we know they were selling Passover, right? Exodus 34 has the three feasts. And we'll start in Exodus 34, verse 18. And you have the feast of unleavened bread. Thou shalt keep 7 days. Thou shalt eat unleavened bread, as I command thee, in the time of the month of Abib. For in the month of Abib thou camest out of Egypt. So we have that feast of unleavened bread. We have the feast of Passover, and then the feast of first fruits. Those are the three feasts. So we have on the 10th of Nisan, the 10th of the first month, you would bring the lambs into your home. And they would be there for 4 days. And during that 4-day time, think about how the bonding you have with a little lamb, a blemishless lamb in your home. It's like your pet. Right? It's like your pet. And then on the 14th of Nisan, you have Passover, Passover celebration. That's Passover. The very next day, you have the feast of unleavened bread. Unleavened bread, that's the matzah, right? And then the next day, you have the feast of first fruits. First fruits. And 3 times a year, all the Hebrew men had to come. You had to come during Passover. And that was the week celebration, had unleavened bread and first fruits. The next one, 40 days later, is Pentecost, right? Pentecost. And then you roll around to the fall on Phil's birthday for the Day of Atonement. It is Phil's birthday. That's also the day that Jesus was born, by the way, but we've already been through that, and that's another story. Okay. So you have these feasts, and this is what Jesus was celebrating. When he was meeting with the disciples there in the upper room, they're celebrating Passover. Okay, they're celebrating, they're Jews, they're celebrating Passover. Okay, all right, so let's go back to Matthew 28. And let's look at one other verse, 1 Corinthians 5:8. 1 Corinthians 5:8. and we're talking about, well, start verse 7. 1 Corinthians 5, 7. Purge out therefore the old leaven, that ye may be a new lump, for ye are unleavened. For even Christ, our Passover, is sacrificed for us. Therefore let us keep the feast, not with old leaven, neither with the leaven of malice and wickedness, but with the unleavened bread of sincerity and truth. Leaven represented sin. And part of what you had to do during the feast was get all the leaven out of your home, because leaven represented sin. And I remember when we had Passover here down in Fellowship Hall, I invited the elders from Temple to come, and I think only one came. Because one came, he looked around in our Fellowship Hall, and we had cake sitting out or some pies sitting out, and he said, "Y'all are never going to be able to get all the leaven out of this room. We can't cover it." I guess you ought to know. I thought, man, we'll vacuum it. It won't be good. We can't be around leaven. I said, okay. So we had one come, and I think he had a good time. And all right, so you get the leaven out. So we have, and that's what he's celebrating. So let's go to Matthew 28 is where we're going to pick up to get the women's view. But I want to look at one little thing before we go, because this is a predicate to what we're going to see, and that is Jesus cleansing the temple. Well, let's start in Matthew 26. Matthew 26, 17, we'll track through. Matthew 26, 17, this is the last supper. Now the first day of the feast of unleavened bread, remember that's that week, that starts with Passover. Where wilt thou that we prepare thee to eat the Passover? And he said, Go into the city to such a man and say to him, The master saith, My time is at hand. I will keep the Passover at thy house with my disciples. And the disciples did as Jesus had appointed them, and they made ready the Passover. Right? This is the Passover. They're Jews. They're celebrating Passover. We know exactly when the day is. Exactly when the day. So if they're celebrating Passover, and the Lord said, This do in remembrance of me, well, how did Easter get here? What's Easter about? Well, and this is fine. It's fine. Easter was the Roman holiday that was already in effect, representing the god of fertility, Astarte. And it was celebrated with sunrise services and the hiding little eggs. Right? And that's fine. Whatever, that's fine. But it is Passover. Now, sometimes Passover lines up with Easter, and sometimes it doesn't. But how do you know? Yeah, the Jewish calendar, it's a lunar calendar. It's based on the moon, so it has a consistency to it. But at the Council of Nicaea in the 3rd century, what they did at the Council of Nicaea, they said, well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to separate out from Passover, and we're going to have Easter. And here's where Easter is going to be. Easter is going to be the first Sunday. That's it, Ron. No, really, this is true. We're live. This is true.
After the first full moon.
After the March equinox. Okay, so it's this, the Druids, it's this Druid calendar. It's the Druid calendar. We're going to have Easter on the first Sunday after the first full moon after the March equinox. So we're having it, and all those people are out at Stonehenge doing whatever they're doing. Fine. Follow Good Friday. Fine. But it's Passover, right? He's the Passover Lamb. That's why when John the Baptist sees him, he says, Behold, the Lamb of God that takes away the sins of the earth. And what we saw last time was that there was that 3 hours of total darkness. Total darkness. Right? 3 hours of total darkness. Now, imagine the chaos down there at the temple. They have all these lambs, and people have paid good money for all these sacrifices, and it's total darkness. Those lambs aren't getting sacrificed. It's not happening. Only one.
You have a blemish on this.
Oh, I have a blemish. Only one lamb is being sacrificed through that time. Right? And they're very concerned to get him down and get him buried before twilight, before the Passover actually starts. Right? Well, let me suggest this to you. I don't think, and the scripture's silent on it, but I don't think any lambs are getting sacrificed when it's total darkness. They're trying to figure out what's going on. Any lamb that may have been sacrificed afterwards, was sacrificed after sundown, was an illegitimate sacrifice. Too late. Too late. So you have that darkness that darkness that encompasses the entire earth water. The wrath of God is being poured out on his son. The sacrifices are stopped dead. And after that, stopped dead forever. Okay. So we're celebrating Passover. Now let's go, let's take, next stop, we've got the Palm Sunday. He walks in on Palm Sunday, and what does he do? They're saying, Hosanna, save us, save us, save us. And what does Jesus do right after Palm Sunday? He cleanses the temple. He goes in there and he tears up the temple, overturning the tables and the money changers, and he says, what? You have made my Father's house, it should be a house of prayer, you've made it what? A den of thieves. What did they do to thieves in this part of town? Okay, this is really, really important. He's turned right after the triumphal entry. He heads over to the temple. He tears the place up. This is during Passover. This is one of the required feasts. It's going to be flush with people, and the treasury of the temple is going to be flush with money. Flush with money. Okay, all right. There's a reason he's tearing up the temple right at this point. We'll see that. Let's go to Matthew 28 now. In the end of the Sabbath, as it began to dawn toward the first day of the week, okay? At the end of the Sabbath, as it began to dawn toward the first day of the week, when would the end of the Sabbath have been?
6 o'clock. Would it have been 6 o'clock?
Sundown Saturday, yeah. 6 o'clock, sundown Saturday. That's how the prophecy is fully fulfilled. Jesus said, you are wanting a sign. The only sign you're going to get is a sign of Jonah. And what did he say about the sign of Jonah? I will be in the grave. What? 3 days and what? And 3 nights. He's very, very specific about that. 3 days and 3 nights. And that's why when you try to cram this into Easter, you go, well, it was some parts of days. That's substantial compliance. No, it's not. He said 3 days, and there's a reason. Because he has to fulfill this feast. This feast is a shadow. This 3-day and 3-night feast is a shadow of the Messiah, a shadow of things to come. And on the Feast of First Fruits, what was going on there? Here's what happens in the Feast of First Fruits. When they offer that wheat offering, that grain offering, there is a selected plot of land where that grain is being raised up, and that's where the grain is going to be sacrificed. That's where the grain is going to be sacrificed. And so the high priest would lead a procession, and the people would be behind him, and they would be chanting as they went. Said, is this the field? Yeah, that's the field. Is this the field? That's the field. Is this the grain? That's the grain. Is this the grain? And they would hold the grain, and at the end of the 3rd day, at the twilight on the 3rd day, they would take the sickle, and they would cut it and separate it from the ground and lift it up and offer it up. At the end of the 3rd day, and you can see this in your mind. You can see this in your mind. The first fruits, he's the first fruits of all that will follow. That sickle sliding through. The priest is lifting up the grain and offering it up to God. You see his eyes open. See his eyes open. All right, let's go in the story. Let's go. At the end of the Sabbath, as it began to dawn towards the first day of the week, came Mary Magdalene and the other Mary to see the sepulchre. Now, Matthew is focusing on these ladies. There were some others. Joanna was there, Salome was there, and the other accounts. So you have these women, and they're coming to the sepulchre to see the sepulchre, right? Verse 2. And behold, there was a great earthquake. And what caused the earthquake? What caused it? It tells us right here, for the angel of the Lord descended from heaven and came and rolled back the stone from the door and sat upon it. So you have this angel descending from heaven, and there's this concussion. As that angel descends and rolls back the stone from the door. Now, in the harmony of the Gospels, let's go over to John 20, and let's pick up the story here in John 20. And we'll just start right at the top of the verse. In the first day of the week, cometh Mary Magdalene early, when it was yet dark, unto the sepulchre, and seeth the stone taken away from the sepulchre. So she sees the stones away. And what does she do then? She runs. She runs and comes to Simon Peter and to the other disciple whom Jesus loved. And who's the disciple that Jesus loved? John. You notice we're reading this from the book of John. That's how he likes to refer to himself. And the other one that Jesus loved, which is, of course, me. And
Well, his mom wanted him to be on one end and
his mom did
brother
that.
on the other.
Yeah, his mom said that. They were fussing over that. They were fussing. Well, who's going to sit at Jesus' right hand? Who's going to sit at his left hand? Well, I don't know, but I'm the one he loved. But I love that about the Gospels. You see the humanity of it. You see the humanity of it. I'm the one that he loved. Don't this be so much into this. All right. They've taken away the Lord out of the sepulchre, and we know not where they have laid him. She doesn't know who's done it. She doesn't know where it is. So what does she do? She takes off running. She takes off running. And where does she run to? She runs to Peter. Peter therefore went forth, and that other disciple, wink, wink, the one he loves, and they came to the sepulchre. Now this is fun. Verse 4. So they ran both together. So they're running. They're both running toward the sepulchre. And the other disciple did outrun Peter. Because he was the one that Jesus really, really loved. And Jesus would want to see him first.
He was also a son of thunder.
The son of thunder. All right, so they're running, and he wants you to know that he beats Peter to the sepulchre. He gets there first. And he came first to the sepulchre. Okay. And he, stooping down and looking in, saw the linen clothes lying, yet went he not in. Then comes Simon Peter, following him, and went to the sepulchre and sees the linen clothes lying, and the napkin that was about his head, not lying with the linen clothes, but wrapped together in a place by itself. So everything is perfectly in order. Everything is perfectly set out. It didn't look like the place was ransacked, like the disciples came in and stole. You know what, you've got all these Roman guards there who'd be taking the clothes off, who'd be running out of there. Everything's neat and ordered. Then went in also that other disciple, which came first to the sepulchre, and he saw him. So John says, you know what, all I needed to do, once I saw that empty tomb, that was it for me. For as yet they knew not the scripture that he must rise again from the dead. Then the disciples went again to their own home. So Mary, she takes a look, she sees it's empty. She dashes back. She dashes back over to tell the other disciples. Okay, now let's go back to Matthew and see what's going on over at the sepulchre with the other ladies. Other ladies are still there. Mary's the only one that's taken off. And so you've got this angel then that's sitting up on the door. Verse 3, his countenance was like lightning, and his raiment white as snow. Fascinating. Fascinating. When we looked in Isaiah, and we saw the angels there, that they had 6 wings, with 2 they flew, and the top 2 wings were doing what? Covering their eyes. Because the glory of the Lord was too much for them to bear. It was too much for them to see. But post-resurrection, we see this angel, and the face is like lightning, and raiment white as snow. So we see the purity, we see this holiness, we see this virtue. Who else had a lit up face when they were in the presence of God? Moses. Okay. And what? So here's what they do. And for fear of him, this angel, the keepers did shake and became as dead men. In the Greek here, the word is seismos. They use seismos for the word shake, and in verse 2, seismos is used for the great earthquake. It's the same root word, seismos. That's where we get the word seismograph. So the angel came and started this earthquake, and look, the soldiers, they're still quaking. And this was much more serious than anything Elvis ever did attempt. There was a whole lot of shaking going on so that they became as dead men. All right? They're passed out just with the glory and the concussion and the fear. Oh no, what's happening to us now? And the angel answered and said to the women, fear not ye, for I know that you seek Jesus, which was crucified. But he is not here, for he's risen. And he said, come, see the place where the Lord lay. Come see it, come see it. I want you to see it. And then go quickly and tell the disciples that he is risen from the dead, and behold, he goeth before you to Galilee. There you shall see him. Lo, I've told you. What did Jesus tell the disciples? I'll meet up with you in Galilee. I'll see you in Galilee. The stone itself, there is no eyewitness to the resurrection. But over here, let's say we got the garden tomb. Here's the garden tomb, and here's the stone. How did Jesus get out of there? There's no record here. The stones rolled away and they see him walk out. How did he get out of here? Well, we've got a clue. Let's go over to John 20:19. John 20:19. Then the same day at evening, being the first day of the week, when the doors were shut, where the disciples were assembled for fear of the Jews, came Jesus and stood in their midst, and said unto them, peace be unto you. And he showed them his hands and his side. Then were the disciples glad when they saw him. How did he get into that room? The doors were shut.
The stone was rolled away for the benefit of those who were coming to see it, not for him.
Here we go. That's it. The stone was rolled away. We could see it. It's not so that Jesus can get out. You think he's just in there with resurrection power and the Father's raising him and he's being raised in the Holy Spirit, and now I got to wait for somebody to come open the door. He's out of there, and the Jews are sitting there. We've got him sealed up in that stone. We've got to have these Roman soldiers. He'll never get out of there. He'll never get out of there. He's not reliant upon the soldiers or anybody else to get him out of the tomb. He walks through walls in the resurrection body. The stone is rolled away for our benefit. Jesus says, all right, come see. It's not to let him out, it's to let us in. The same reason the temple veil was torn. The temple veil wasn't torn to let the priests out. It was to let us in. Now we get in. Come see. Come see. And there's an invitation. Behold. Come see the place. And he tells them what? Now that you've seen, go quickly and tell. Now that you've seen, you know the Lord is resurrected, go tell. Isn't that the message of the gospel, the resurrection? It was the message at Pentecost. It was Paul's message. It was Peter's message. Resurrection of Jesus Christ. The resurrection is mentioned over 100 times in the New Testament, all the way to Revelation. It is the foundation stone of Christianity. The resurrection. Now, you've seen it. Now what? Go tell. Go tell now. And what did they do? They departed from the sepulchre with fear and great joy, and did run to bring the disciples in. Okay, look at the reaction here. They ran. They ran to tell the word. And as they went to tell his disciples, behold, Jesus met them, saying, all hail. And they came and held him by the feet and worshipped him. And then Jesus said unto them, be not afraid. What does he say? Go tell my brethren. Tell my brethren that they may go into Galilee, and there shall they see him. What did Jesus Jesus referred to them before? In John 14. What had it, up to this point, what had he referred the disciples to? Friends. He had referred to them as friends, my friends. He called them friends. These are my friends, right? These are my friends. You know, I have a lot of friends, but you know what? If I die without a will, they won't inherit anything from me. They could be my best friends. They won't inherit. Now he calls them brothers. You're my brothers now. You're part of the inheritance. You're part of the family. Okay? And so go tell, and they go. And they go, and no. Okay, let's go back over to John and let's do something real cool. I think we're going to run out of time. This is my favorite part of the story. It's my favorite part. Let's see. Okay. So, John 19, they ran together and they did outrun Peter, and we left off in 11, verse 11.
19,
Or 20.
20, I'm sorry, 20. Verse 20, 11. Is that where we left off? Yeah. Yeah, 2011. Because Peter outran, or John outran Peter, and they found the napkins all okay. Verse 11. But Mary stood without at the sepulchre weeping. And as she wept, she stood down and looked into the sepulchre. And here's what she sees. Look what she sees. She goes, she tells the disciples. She comes back. The stone was rolled away so we could look in there. Look at verse 12. And sees two angels in white sitting, the one at the head and the other at the feet, where the body of Jesus had lain. What do you see? We're looking into the tomb. We're looking into the tomb. Here's the cutaway. The stone's rolled away. We're in the tomb. And here's where Jesus lay, right? That's where he lay. And there's an angel at the foot. And there's an angel at the head. What do you see? Mercy seat. Mercy seat. The fulfillment of the law. The ultimate act of mercy. Where he was laying, and the blood most certainly leaked out from the linen onto this platform. And the angels are standing on the other side and saying, the sacrifice was accepted. He's been resurrected. The sacrifice was accepted. Now go tell. Mercy seat. There it is. The completion, the fulfillment. And they said in 13, why weepest thou? Because they have taken my Lord, and I know not where they have laid him. And when she had thus said, she turned herself back and saw Jesus standing there. You know, it was Jesus, and he says unto her, woman, why weepest thou? Whom seekest thou? She supposed him to be the gardener. Said unto him, Sir, if thou wilt have borne him hence, tell me where thou hast laid him, and I will take him away. And Jesus said unto her, Mary. Just now look how kind he calls her by name. She turned herself and said unto him, Rabboni. Rabboni is the highest master teacher position available. It's not just rabbi. It's way above. Rabboni, which is the same master. And Jesus said to her, look, touch me not, for I am not yet ascended to my Father. But go to my brethren and say to them, I ascended to my Father. Now, this touch me not, what does that mean? It's in the present perfect. It's really, stop touching. Stop doing what you do. She's already touching him. She's holding him. I'm not going to let you go. I've lost you before. I'm not going to let you go. No, no. I've not ascended yet. I'm still here. I've not ascended. Go tell. Go. All right? That's what it means, because the other ladies later we're going to see, they're worshiping at his feet. They're touching him. He's telling Thomas, put your hand in my side. Feel the wounds in mine. Feel me. Touch me. This is the present imperative. He's saying, look, we'll have time for this later. Your job is to go tell. And what's the news? What's the new news? They are my brothers. and say to them, I ascend to my Father and your Father. Why? Because now you're brothers. And to my God and your God. And that's the gospel. And that's the good news. The sacrifice accepted. The mercy seat fulfilled. Brotherhood of Christ opened up. The same gods. The same Father. All right. And we'll finish out next week. But look at what the ladies are doing. Look what they're doing. Why were they going to the sepulcher? And this is just strictly from the woman's point of view. Where were the guys? They were going to anoint him. And the reason they were going there right after the feast is because under Hebrew custom, the spirit resided with the body for about 3 days, and on the 4th day it would leave. They went to see a dead body. That's because of the love that they had. They took something to see Christ, expecting nothing in return. And the disciples, they're all hiding out there. The men, they're just hiding. They're saying, well, you know, that's kind of not a pragmatic thing to do. I mean, they just killed him. They'll probably kill us. You still have Romans out there. The Jews are all mad. Why would we go there? But because of their great love, they ran to Jesus, taking something and expecting nothing in return.
The women also never denied him. I'm sure that some of the reason why the men were not there was fear. It was also guilt. You know, who was at the feet of the cross? Women.
They were there the whole time.
Although John was also there for at least a time, and he was the first one to receive an inheritance as a brother from Christ, because he said, "Woman, behold your son," to John.
Yes.
So he was the first.
And that's because women have such a capacity to love. They really, really do. Can you imagine the love they had for Jesus? Men, I'm sure your wives love you just, you're the highest object of their affection. I'm positive of that. How about the love for a perfect man? The intensity of love for a perfect man. And they're demonstrating that. Now, why did God choose the women to reveal all these truths to? To reveal the word. Why did he do that? Why did he choose the women? There could be a lot of reasons why.
Because Eve was the first person that took the apple and sinned.
The apple, so
She
that
was the
revealed.
first sinner.
Greater loss, greater. There are a lot. The scripture doesn't say. My thought would be, because they were there.
They were the ones who had the faith to go.
They showed up. And the same is true today. When you run to Jesus, and when we meet here every single Sunday, come with an expectation. Come with an expectation. You never know what's going to happen. And you come what? With something to bring. That could be anything. Your tithes, a hug, a handshake, a smile, a song, a word of encouragement, a prayer. That's what we bring. That's what we bring. Wouldn't you want to live in a community like that? Wouldn't you want to go to a church like that? They've laid out the design for us. Just nothing but love, expecting nothing in return. Because what he'd already done for them would have been enough. And now they have this greater revelation. Okay, well, we'll keep on with the women's side. But yeah, they have a unique capacity to love. And they didn't care about the soul. They didn't care about anything else. We would see Jesus.